This is Chronicles of Power, a podcast dedicated to the world of power, where I review and break down the latest episode in the Powerverse. We are brought to you by Private Listed, your source for all things music, sports, culture, and entertainment. Hit us up on IG at PVTLSTD or hit me directly at Keemie Cakes on IG. That is Cakes on IG. I can't spell my own name. Did you know that we are also on YouTube? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can know when new episodes are dropping, interviews are dropping, and obviously new music as well. I am your host, Keemie, and thank you for joining me as we analyze Tariq and Friends. I know we are so happy for Power to be back. Book 2, Ghost. Before we get into the episode breakdown, let's go over some news. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able to break down episode 1 because I have some surprises for you guys. We actually have guests coming up this year and for this season of the show. So, back to the news. For the 3rd season premiere of Starz' hit series, they raked in nearly 6 million viewers across platforms. So that means live TV and apps. So, for instance, they have the Starz app, and then across outside of the United States, they have Starz Play, and they have different apps that play the episode. But across all of those apps, they had nearly 6 million viewers. According to Deadline, the premiere episode delivered 5.8 million multi-platinum viewers in its first 3 days after its debut on March 17th. Also, the season 3 debut was up 30% from the season 2 debut. So that means that we're obviously going to get another season. They're going to renew it for season 4. And then there was only one thing that they did point out within the Deadline article. It was that they were down for live viewership, but I think I know why that is. So remember, the show used to air on Sundays, and I'm not sure if everyone realizes that the show is back on Friday, available on Friday for live viewership. So Friday, I believe it airs at 8 p.m. in the United States on Starz. But they're down like a couple 100,000. So say, for instance, they had around a little over 300,000 for live viewership for season 3, and then for season 2 they only had about 300. Season 2 they had over 500,000. Excuse me. So, in other news, in Who's Suing Who news, your man 50 and our girl Courtney and the people them that live at Starz were recently hit with a lawsuit by someone by the name of Mr. Corey Holland Sr., whose nickname is, you probably guessed it, Ghost. So in April of 2021, Mr. Holland filed a $1 billion lawsuit against Kemp, Jackson, and Starz, and he alleged that the character in their hit show is based on his likeness and his stories. So apparently, Mr. Holland was friends with Courtney's dad, and he gave Courtney's dad a CD titled Blasphemy. This was back in 2007. And he believes that the last season of Power was directly inspired by whatever was on that CD. So my question here is, which part, sir? Because the last season of Power, it was wild. Ghost was running for lieutenant governor? No, he wasn't running for it because you appoint a lieutenant governor. And so the person who's running for governor picks their lieutenant governor, similar to how we do a president, and the president picks their vice president, so their running mate. So Ghost was lieutenant governor. He killed the plug. He was the Queen's Child Project still going? And then he sold his penthouse, didn't divorce his wife, tried to send his son to jail for avenging the murder of his daughter, and died, but left his side chick sister the money for her son to go to school. So just, sir, like, I cannot wait till they go through all of this so that we can see which parts of his life actually related to Mr. Holland. But he also claims that 50 sent people to his house to fight him or get into a physical altercation with him to, I guess, drop the lawsuit. But because no one responded to the claim or responded to the suit that he brought against Starz, Courtney, and 50, the judge ordered that all of them go to mediation, and the mediation could start as soon as May of 2023. So we'll keep an eye out to see what happens with that. But I kind of feel like it's getting a little serious now if they even ordered them to go to mediation. But moving on. I know we didn't do a full recap of episode 1 last week, but here are my key takeaways. So first things first, we meet Noma, and to me, Noma means business. But I have some questions about her. If Mecca was her man, and she believes that that ring was for her, and she knew about the ring, how come she didn't have an inkling about Nene and Dante's teenage love affair, or that there was a child produced from it? Like, that's a little far-fetched to me, because I'm pretty sure she had eyes on Dante from wherever she was at. She was across the pond, and she knew Dante was in New York. She knew that the ring was in New York, so she didn't have nobody watching him, and she didn't know about Nene, Zeke, or any of the slackness that Dante was going on with. I don't believe it. Also, when she took out the cutlass, I said, "Oh no, Starz means business," because I couldn't believe I saw a machete on live TV. But she cuts off somebody's hand, and I was just like, okay, we're supposed to get the feeling that this woman is scary. We're not playing with her, and whatever it is that she wants to be done has to happen. So I guess we have to keep an eye out for Noma. But she wasn't in the second episode, so that's always a little, I don't know. Whenever I see people, whenever they introduce a new character and they're not in all of the episodes, I'm like, oh, okay, they're gonna die. But maybe I'm being too presumptuous here. Secondly, I miss Zeke. I don't care what y'all say. I miss my little Zeke. He made the show funny for me. He was hilarious. However, I will say this. If Starz really banged with Zeke, wouldn't they have played, "You know already, yeah, I'm ready"? Why, instead of Little Mo singing at the memorial, they would have just played Zeke's song. I'm sorry. I'm in a room by myself, and I'm like cracking my own jokes to myself. Please bear with me. So Little Mo sang at his memorial, and I do have a question about the memorial and the timeline that everything is happening. So we know that this is 3 months later from the events of the last episode where we left off in season 2. So they have his memorial 3 months later. When was Zeke's funeral? And then in the trailer, we see a funeral happening. We see a coffin being pushed. We see that a shootout, I think it's like a shootout that happens after the funeral or like while they're going up the steps. So I don't know if this is like a flashback scene. It doesn't look to be like a flashback scene, but there is the coffin, and we've already gone to Zeke's memorial. Now, this is not to say that you can't have a funeral after a memorial, but we saw that that we now are in present time. So we are now 3 months out, and they're gonna have a funeral 3 to 4 months out after the memorial, or after his death rather. That doesn't make sense. Now, again, I'll say there are funerals that happen after memorials. I get that, but Zeke's body wasn't missing. It wasn't like he was extremely sick. He didn't drown. His body wasn't deformed, and it wasn't like he was missing. So I can't wrap my head around why there would be another funeral scene if we just had a memorial scene for Zeke. So I think that funeral is for Papi. I think that's for Papi Tejada or somebody, because why else would why would Monet and all of them be at this funeral? Who else so close to them could have died that they would all go? And if the season didn't open up with Zeke's funeral, then why would we open with a memorial? But anyway, so I think that's the father who died. I think the father is dead, y'all. But y'all ain't hear that from me. Also, in the trailer, did y'all notice that Kane has on Papi's chain? Because he definitely has on his chain, unless I'm bugging. And if I'm bugging, y'all can definitely DM me and tell me. Another thing that I took away from episode 1 is that Monet is running out of patience, and once she starts running out of patience, there's going to be a whole bunch of unnecessary deaths that will follow, because we know from prior knowledge that when she's looking for answers and she's enraged, she's just going to kill you. And then she'll have her That's So Raven vision where Tariq lays out everything for her and tells her, hey, you had this, and that wrong. And then she'll come to glory and realize, like, oh, I made a mistake. So she kills all of these innocent people only because she's upset. So we'll see. And we saw in episode 2 that, people are going to die because of her grief for her son or her nephew's son. Yeah. And then last takeaway, and I'll probably get back into this in this episode recap. Why is Drew still running around with Everett? Didn't your daddy tell you to kill him? Why are you still, I don't understand why this is still a thing. And also, did y'all notice that the guy from The Wood and from Fresh, he was in the penthouse at the table speaking to Kane? And shout out to Power is Fire for bringing everyone to the light, for showing us that Sean Nelson is the same guy from The Wood and from Fresh, and he played the part of Kane's new connect, or Kane was trying to connect with him in order to sell. But that's when we meet Noma's people, and then, they strong arm them into selling. So those are my takeaways from episode 1. I'm sure we have more, but, we'll go over them as we keep going throughout the season, because there's always callbacks to the first episode. But let's start with episode 302. Because obviously the big reveal in episode 1 was that Lauren is still alive. Now, please excuse me, because this is being recorded, if I roll my eyes into oblivion, because we start off with a dream montage of Lauren recollecting what happened to her, like they do in old school soap operas. So if anybody remembers All My Children, General Hospital, anything like that, she's having a dream where she remembers everything that happened. So it's to tell the audience what happened to her once we left the show last season. I have so many questions about this scene because, one, what type of boots did Effie have on in order to push this car into the river? Because I know, or into the water, into the reservoir, wherever they was at. I know I've had to push my car before. I've had to push an old car before. I've had to push a new car, just like what Lauren has. And it was like, it took two people ended up helping me push the car, right? So how the hell did Effie push this car? Granted, it was going down a slope into the water. So she puts the car in neutral or drive. There is an alleged dead person or knocked out person in the front seat. You can't necessarily put their foot on the gas to help assist because it's just going to flop over because the person is unconscious. So did she tie her foot to the gas pedal? Why didn't they show us that? Maybe I'm thinking about this too hard, because sometimes with Power, you just have to kind of go with it, because some of the things that they do just doesn't make sense. Because I'm like, this woman is 5'2", maybe 5'4", and she just pushed a car into the water. And then on top of that, of course, someone is walking their dog in the wee hours of the morning in a desolate area of the woods and saw the car sinking and was able to call for help in time for ambulances, divers, and cops to pull Lauren's body from the wreck. Really? Like, for real? Then, to top this all off, this is the icing on the cake for me, right? To top it all off, she pushes the car Effie pushes the car in the water with Lauren in it. They come back and say Lauren is dead. So where's Lauren's body? How y'all know Lauren is dead? Who identified the body? Who's told which one of her parents went to the police and said, oh yeah, that's my daughter. And then what happened to the funeral? So she didn't get a funeral. She didn't get a memorial service because they never said that her body was missing. And where's the death certificate? Like, come on. But either way, after we move past that, and then, I want to talk about like how everyone thought that Effie was the CI, but I guess, because episode 2 has aired, we're all over it at this point. Sax is the CI. It's not Effie, because Effie apparently has brute strength and is able to push a car in the water, doesn't know that the chick doesn't drown, doesn't stick around to see what happens, just gets out of there. Somebody walking the dog comes and finds her, and then they're able to get her out in 20 minutes. Meanwhile, if we call the cops here, the cops are nowhere to be found. But in the woods, they can find it. Just find the trail. Effie drove to, I don't know where she drove. She drove 10 minutes out from where she left Brayden, and the cops, divers, ambulances, everybody, they were able to find her. And somebody was walking their dog during that time too, before the car was able to completely be submerged in water. But anyway, let's get back to Jenny with all the brilliant ideas. She thinks that Tariq is the kingpin. But Lauren doesn't have any evidence of this, so she can't really pin it on Tariq. So she's trying to get her to think back, or what do you know? What have you seen? And she only knows that Brayden was the one, she was last with Brayden, and Effie was the one that tried to kill her. And maybe Brayden? Maybe? But we later on see that Jenny meets up with Sax, when they put it on his coffee cup. And they're making it clear here that Sax is the CI. Now, how he's a CI and not just a crooked attorney who could be disbarred for sharing privileged attorney-client information is beyond me. Like, I don't even know how she's considering him a CI. He's not, from what I understand, like, how the hell can the opposing attorney be CI? But whatever, we're just going to go with it. Her end goal here is to try to get a RICO case. However, she doesn't have enough resources, and she's not connecting the dots by herself. But Mr. Whitman comes in at the last minute and connects all the dots. Oh, you know Ramirez? Oh, Monet, she was sleeping with him. And that's how this is all connected. Meanwhile, the beautiful NYPD, all of the other investigators, Blanca, Sax, nobody else can put together that Ramirez was the missing key here. And then they move from the target being Tariq to Monet being the queen pin. Whoa, the case is completely blown open at this point. Then, so that's all of Jenny. I'm not talking about Jenny no more because Jenny is annoying me at this point. Then we come back to 3 the hard way. So remember when Ghost, Kanan, and Tommy made like a pact to be a united front to get together and have a better go at this whole drug thing? That's what we have now. And now instead of 3 the hard way, maybe we have 4 because remember when Tasha was involved too? So now Effie is involved. So now it is Kane, Brayden, Tariq, and Effie. And they're all trying to get all of Noma's products sold. So this scene is supposed to let us know that Noma's threat is being taken seriously. Kane has facilitated the additional help of crews from Jamaica Avenue. He brings in the college kids, which is Tariq and Effie. And then also we have people from a hedge fund or a private equity fund, Brayden. So they are trying to get the drugs sold across the Eastern Seaboard. So all of the Ivy League colleges and all of the country clubs, anywhere that Brayden has access to that they normally wouldn't. And they make a clip about, wherever you wouldn't get arrested, but we would. And we are supposed to notice the juxtaposition here of Effie's Corolla to Brayden's Benz, whereas she is doing this out of necessity. Student loans are accruing interest as they sit and linger. They are talking about this. And Brayden is working for the hedge fund or working for his father's firm and completely benefiting from his white male privilege, from nepotism, and just able to get away with things that they cannot. Whereas they have to pay for their education. Tariq was kicked out of his dorm, even though Brayden was the one who admitted to selling drugs, and they are getting the shorter end of the stick, even though they were the ones who were considered to be innocent or exonerated from all of the things that they were accused of. So keep in mind, Corolla, Benz, that's what we're supposed to take away from that scene. We're supposed to get an understanding of why Effie is doing the things that she's doing. They're trying to set like foundation stones for why we're supposed to be paying attention to Effie, why she's doing these things, and why it's not just about getting money for her. The money is supposed to pay for school, and she has to do these things. Moving on. We see that Davis brings the case file to Monet, and Zeke's entire life is reduced to a box sitting in the living room. The shot of the box in the living room is important because that's where Poppy stole the ring from, right? He didn't have access to Zeke's stuff before, but, the box is sitting in the living room. Monet is sulking, and we see Davis come in and explain that, hey, the cops, they don't have nothing. There's nothing on Dante's killer. There's nothing on Zeke's killer, but lo and behold, both of their killers are in the house because Monet killed Dante and Poppy killed Zeke by mistake. Because remember, he didn't know that Zeke wasn't Mecca. He just saw him from behind. And he doesn't have enough experience with Zeke outside of prison because Poppy just got released, like what, at this point, 5 months ago? And Poppy sees how distressed Monet is, and he instructs Kane to be the bloodhound that he is and wants him to sniff this all out and find the answers for their mother, because as long as she is grieving this way, it is going to continue to be hell to pay for everybody in that house and everybody in the family, and obviously people on the streets, because she's just going to start killing everybody. And she wants, justice for her nephew, son. She does. All right. Can I just say, I want y'all to know this, because this is set in present day New York. There are cameras everywhere here. If you look in the studio that I'm recording, there's a camera in here. There's a camera behind me. There's a camera at the door. There's a camera in the hallway. There are cameras everywhere. On the street, just me walking here, I counted at least 4. And I did it on purpose to make sure that, when I came in here to record, to make sure that I am not bugging. There are not just traffic cameras here. There are not just red light cameras. There's surveillance everywhere. All buildings, almost all buildings have cameras on them. Every single houses, everything, especially with Ring. I say all of that to say that Kane is the one that finds out all of this information and not the NYPD. But we'll get back to Kane and Poppy later. Let's talk about Tate. Tate, he's in a bit of a bind because he's currently in the midst of another failed election cycle. And we find out that he doesn't have enough donations to keep his campaign afloat. Enter Brayden and Brushandria. We found out that Brayden has paid off by way of campaign donation to Tate to give Brushandria the internship that was supposed to be promised to Tariq, and as a result will push Tariq into, guess what? Weston Holdings, where Brayden wants him to be. Wants him to come to the promised land where they can sell all of the drugs and be completely corrupt. So let's talk about Brayden's manipulation. This was an OG Ghost move if I ever saw one. Once someone isn't doing what Ghost wanted them to do, he manipulates the situation and gets them to do it anyway. And this is Brayden's power play, right? He gets rid of the intern who was sleeping on the job by planting Proud Boy or white supremacist paraphernalia in his desk. That's why you saw the tiki torch and the short sleeve Hawaiian shirt, because remember, the Jews will not replace us. Remember that all in Charlottesville? So that's why the tiki torch and all that stuff was there, because I saw a lot of people didn't understand what was happening there. But that's what it was. It was white supremacist paraphernalia, and that's why they ousted him from his internship, and they said they have a zero tolerance policy. Hopefully everyone is clear about that. So now that intern is ousted, it makes way for Tariq to intern and, of course, get course credit and be exposed to the insane drug use at these big firms because of the burnout rate. So what Brayden was explaining, like, because the workload is so heavy at these firms, they take all types of things to stay awake. So they take poppers, they take cocaine, they take Adderall, they take all types of stuff in order to be able to compete, because the business is extremely competitive and it is a eat what you kill business. And a lot of people, they can't spend a lot of time in that type of arena. So therefore they need to use any substitutes in order to help them be able to compete and stay within the playing field, I'll say. But anyway, so Tariq eventually sees this and can't help but be a little murderous drug dealer like his mama and his daddy, and hatch a plan to kill the trainer who supplied the drugs as a ruse in protein powder containers. So they wanted Kane to do it, but obviously Kane can't do it because Kane is busy trying to find who killed Zeke. Now, let's move to Drew and Everett. And I'm glad that Drew and Everett are finally broken up, because I don't like Everett for Drew. He's completely self-centered, and he acts like the ultimate jock. He is definitely a ball player, or, the stereotypical ball player that we're used to seeing on TV shows, and this caricature of a person who only cares about themselves. And just why aren't you at my game? Why didn't you come to my going away party? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you doing this? I can't understand his why aren't you stopping your life in order to watch me excel attitude? Especially, Drew's face is looking like Martin when he had to fight Tommy Hearns. He gets jumped by someone fresh from DR who was paid off by Poppy, don't forget that. And can you imagine going to see your significant other and they're not concerned about why your face looks like this, but are pissed off because you didn't make it to their party, and then it's thrown in your face, oh, let me guess, you got another family issue? Was this the last person that beat you up, or was this the new person that beat you up? Can you imagine? You going to go to the person that's supposed to be the person that you confide in, the person that you're supposed to feel most comfortable with. And because it's not like they just started dating, they know each other. And he's coming to him like, hey, look at my face. Don't you see that something happened to me? He's just like, I don't care what you got going on. Okay? You ain't coming to my party, so later for you. But Drew uses this as ammunition, right? So they text Drew and say, listen, Kane not answering, you got to go do this for us. So they tell him, listen, we need this physical trainer, this person out. So he meets up with them. He meets up at Weston Holdings, see the guy leave the building, comes, pushes him in front of the B-46, and we all know the B-46 is going to keep rolling. And it doesn't come, well, I will say sometimes it comes on time because there's more than one of them. But if it's packed, that B-46 is not going to stop for you. Let me just let you know that right now, especially if it's stopping at Utica and, well, at that point, it's Malcolm X and Fulton. Over. But anyway, so he pushes him in front of the bus. It was kind of weird to me because I thought he was going to get shot. But again, here's where I say, where are the cameras? Even the buses in New York City have cameras on them. There's no way that they were able to push someone in front of a bus and no one sees it. But as soon as he pushes him, he walks away, fades into the shadows, and then all of a sudden all of the pedestrians come out and see the body under the bus. But let's go to our next Tejada child. So let's leave Drew and get to Diana. I have a question here. How old are these kids? Like, I don't know how old anyone is. I'm super confused. They made a point to make sure to say that Tariq is 19 now. But anyway, Diana has enrolled at Stansfield and her parents are paying for her tuition, but has left her out in the cold with everything else. And that just doesn't make sense. Like, why would Poppy leave her out in the cold? He's paying for the tuition, but he's not going to give her any money for books. However, I've been there and I know that books are expensive in college. They were like the bane of my existence because I couldn't understand why we needed new editions of the same book that told us the same thing, and there wasn't any updates, and they were super duper expensive. We moved to Salim, who was a friend to the show. Shout out to Mr. Petey McGee. And he makes a fantastic point to her, and I'm glad that someone finally points this out. You got on a Balenciaga bag, but you can't buy books. For all of that, you should be able to afford the books that you need for school and be able to be fine, girl. And then I'm like, in my head, girl, get you a Poshmark account or some sort of styling account or closet account where you can sell some of this stuff, because if you have on a Balenciaga bag and no books to put in it, that's a problem. Okay? It's a problem. But they pretty much intimate that she can't go to her parents for it. And I'm guessing the reason why she can't go to her parents is because of the whole dinner table theme that we had last season. Monet is still mad at her. Monet is not talking to her. Poppy is talking to her because he understands what she was doing. And I'm guessing the reason why Poppy can't give her the money is because he doesn't necessarily have it. And this just brings me to Poppy's power shift. But we'll talk more about his power shift later. He doesn't have the money because he doesn't want to sell for Noma. He sent Kane on the task to find a new connect, and Kane didn't come out victorious with that because remember, that's the character that we saw sitting with him at the table before Noma's people came in. There was something that I wanted to mention about this. So later on, we do see that she meets up with Celine from Effie's advice because the TA has books for her. And Celine makes a suggestion that, hey, why don't you work at the general store? She goes to the general store, he shows her around, and then she sees Tariq and Effie walk in. I completely understand why she hid from them. Because one, she liked Tariq. Two, she doesn't want them to see her working a menial job. And she has some sort of pride about her. Her family is a big drug dealing family. Why on earth would you need to work at the general store. Now, how is she going to be able to hide from them throughout the entire semester, considering she needs to work in order to buy books? I don't know how that's going to work. Also, like, it takes 2 weeks to get paid. Even if she got paid every week, if she starts tomorrow, she still has to wait till next week in order to get paid because they hold the check. And by the time she gets her paycheck, she's 3 weeks into the semester, doesn't have any books, and she's going to be behind. That's another story. I'm being way too logical with this, but let's get into my boy, Kane. Kane gets the answers that the NYPD could not. He finds the pilots, tortures them, finds out that they saw a bald guy with a big collar driving a car with a busted taillight. Now, I don't know if that's the point where Kane realizes that, hey, that's my dad, but it eventually comes out when it leads him to the guaps, right? The guy comes back from the Dominican Republic, finds out that his whole crew is decimated. Kane kills everyone in the warehouse except for the one that spray painted Drew's back. He brings him back to Monet and Poppy, and he says, and the guy, I can't remember the character's name, if they even gave him a name. He says, I was paid to beat Drew up. And apparently that's when everything clicked to Kane, because it was Poppy's reaction to him saying that made Kane know that he did it. So it's not just one thing, it's not two things, it's everything. It's not the bald guy, it's not the busted taillight, it is his reaction. It's, in addition to those things, his reaction to what the guap said. Like, I was paid to do this. I didn't have to do that. And then, Poppy comes in over the top and says, oh, he's going to say anything to save his ass at this point. It don't even matter, because Monet, what did we say earlier? Once she's enraged, once she's upset, she's just going to kill you. And that's what happens. She shoots him, she kills him, and that's that. But here is the meat and potatoes of the episode. And I'm actually glad that we resolved this part early in the episode, because Kane and Poppy clean up the body, and Kane confronts Poppy about killing Zeke. He admits, meaning Poppy, admits that it was a mistake, to which it was because none of them knew what Mecca looked like besides Kane. Drew didn't know who Mecca was. Tariq didn't even know who Mecca was until, Mecca confronted him. And Monet didn't know that Dante and Mecca were the same person. But granted, she still ends up killing Dante. He doesn't know, but none of them don't know what Mecca looks like. So it was really a mistake on Poppy's behalf. And Kane doesn't care that it's a mistake. He's going to use it against him, because Kane is looking for an opportunity. And this is prime retail space for him now, because now he says, I own you. And remember, this is similar to the scene in Raising Kanan with Rock and Lou in terms of the line, but in terms of the gravity of it, it's not the same thing, because Poppy is not trying to get out of the game. Poppy just wants to have his own piece of the pie, not Lou. Lou just wants to get away from his sister, away from the madness, away from the drugs, and Rock is not letting him out. But we can do a deep character analysis about this another day, because I do want to talk about Kane. And because Kane is unique in that although he's the hothead, he's not dumb. And I'm glad that they make the distinction with him, because he's looking for acceptance from both his mother and his father. And whoever gives him the most adulation, he is going to go with and he'll side with. He wants to regain his father's trust, because remember, Kane tried to kill him. But, that was from his mother putting the battery in his back to do so. And Kane would do anything to appease them because of his need for wanting to be the top child, the top dog, the person that they come to, the person that they confide in, the person that is going to take over the family business. And because he's consistently trying to prove himself, he also wants to be the favored child. And I remember thinking back on even watching like the first season or the second season, before we find out that Zeke is Monet's child, I always thought that Kane moved like a middle child, like he had severe middle child syndrome. And essentially he is, right? He's the middle boy because Zeke is older. Kane would consider to be the middle, and Drew is younger. So he always moved to me like he had middle child syndrome and not like the eldest child, because the eldest child is always allegedly supposed to be confident. They are able to do things by themselves. They don't necessarily need the backing of the mother and the father because they've been the oldest all along, and they've essentially taken on another parental role because they're the eldest. And he doesn't act that way. Well, not totally, because he does act older than Drew and Diana, meaning that he's more independent than them, but he still needs his parents' validation. So hopefully that all makes sense. I feel like that's it, right? If there's more to add to it, I'll definitely continue to add throughout the season. But what I do want to juxtapose this with or compare it to is Poppy losing power. So Kane right now has all of the power, and Poppy is losing power in a couple ways, right? So he's losing power with his children. He's losing power. He has lost power with his wife, and that has happened since he was incarcerated, since she started sleeping with someone else, Ramirez. And obviously, did she sleep with Dante last season? I can't remember. But he's lost power over his entire family. So the family dynamic, whereas as it relates to patriarchy and gender roles, he is not at the head of the table anymore. They kind of make him believe that he is, and he tries to do things, whereas he tries to tell Kane what to do, Drew what to do, and he tries to win over Diana by making sure that she's gone back to school. So therefore, her allegiance can still be to him, but it's dwindling because he's not paying for her books. He told Drew to kill Everett, and Everett didn't do it. His wife doesn't give a hell what he's saying, and Kane right now found out that he killed Zeke. So all of his power is dwindling, which is why what I mentioned earlier, I do think that he is going to be the one that is in that coffin that we see later on, or at some point in the season, which we saw in the trailer. Don't forget that there's also more backstory to him and Kane, right? So what I forgot to mention while we were going through the power dynamics is he also had Kane beat up because Kane was losing his way and his mother did not have control over him, and he had prison guards beat up Kane when he came to visit him. And sometimes tough love is not always the best love, especially if the child is just crying out for attention from you and saying to you specifically, hey, Drew is not the person that should be running the organization or who should be the heir to the throne. It should be me. I am the oldest. I have more experience. I am toughest. I'm smartest. And you guys should be looking at me and not looking away from me because of some indiscretions that I've had in the past. But now Poppy is at the mercy of Kane, and I don't see this lasting long. Kane is not going to be sitting there holding this over his head for 4 to 5 episodes. I just don't see that happening. Other things that we can probably take away from this episode, I'm wondering when Tariq this is all gonna come out, that Brayden manipulated him into coming to Weston Holden's. Also, Effie with course correct her trying to restart the app. That is not going to end well. Why the hell would you restart it if Brayden just admitted on the stand that he started it? And they mentioned that they don't even have no more tutors to do this. And she goes to Stansfield now. It's not like she's at a different school and she can try to start something else. She doesn't even change the name of the damn app. Like, girl, use your head. But if you guys have any questions for me, or you want to add anything, or you feel like I missed something in the recap, please DM me, leave a comment on the YouTube page, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. It has been a pleasure talking to you guys, and look out for the special interviews that we have dropping in the weeks to come. They'll probably happen in between episodes, but up until now, thank you for listening to the recap, and we'll see you again next week, Friday. Have a good day, guys.